So we're starting with number 4, since this is the question that was specifically asked of me. If you want to ignore me, you're welcome to. I just ask that you kindly not talk over me. So what I want you to look at for number 4 is the fact that one of the variables is already missing. And so that's my way of giving you a gift in the form of kind of starting the problem for you. So if you take a look at number 4, the second equation is of great interest to all of us. It should be, because it says negative 9a plus 8c equals negative 42. And that is significant. And I'm going to start using this term because I feel like it makes sense if I were a science teacher, like David Attenborough or something. That equation is waiting for a mate. And what I mean by that is that equation is going to sit over there and it's going to wait for me to introduce to it another equation that doesn't have a b. That equation is unique in that it doesn't have a b. So it will sit there and wait for me to give it 1. Now, can I make that? Yes, I can. And so I'm going to go back to my original system and I'm going to look at row 1, which is right here, a plus 6b plus 8c equals negative 2. And then I'm going to look at my original row 3. Of course, I'm leaving out row 2 because I kind of plucked it out and moved it over there to the right-hand side of the screen. So my mission right now is to make another equation that doesn't have a b. I need you to stop me here and ask if that doesn't make sense. Good? Okay. So it's not going to just happen. It's not going to just fall into your lap. But like we've done a lot of these, and you know that if I want to, that this isn't up to me now. The problem had begun for me, and I'm going to follow that path. And so I'm not going to look at the A's and say like, "Ooh, I can multiply by 3 or something." No, I am targeting the B's on purpose because I want to make a mate for that equation off to the side. So what I know about my B's is that if I multiply the top row by 2, I can turn the B into a 12. And if I multiply the bottom row by 3, that b will become a negative 12. I don't need to manipulate signs because they're already positive, negative. Good. So what's going to happen now is I'm going to write down below this, I'm going to write the new equations and what they would say. So the new top equation would say 2a plus 12b plus 16c equals negative 4. And then I'm going to go through the second row and I'm going to get negative 9a minus 12b plus 15c equals 120. Any questions so far? What's going to happen now is I'm going to add those together. And I don't feel like I need to do a lot of the R1, R2 notation here because like it would be really hard for anyone who does what I do for a living to look at what I have on the TV and not understand what you've done. Assuming that you put parentheses in that you show me what you're multiplying the original equations by. Like if you put this on a piece of paper, it would take me all of about 3.5 seconds to know exactly what you did. And now when I add these equations downwards, when I add straight down there where the blue arrow's at, how many A's do I get? I get negative 7 of them. And then when I add straight down here where the second blue arrow's at, of course I get cancel, which is what we wanted anyways. And when I add straight down the third blue arrow, what do I get? Plus 31c equals, and then when I add straight down the final blue arrow, what do I get? 116. Does that make sense so far? Okay, so what I'm going to do now is I'm going to take this equation that I worked so hard to make, and I'm going to bring it up and say, look, you now have a mate. You have another equation that's just like you, another equation that I am missing the same variable in. JB, does that 100% make sense? Okay. Now, this is not just a free gift here. Like I can't just add these together and say, oh, it works. So this, you've done this so many times. We have to make the cancellation occur. I'm guessing you'd gravitate to the A's in this case because that's in our wheelhouse, right? Like we know 9 and 7 make 63. We don't know what 8 and 31 both make. That's a little bit more uncomfortable. So I'm going to attack it with the thought of I want to make the A's disappear. So I'm going to multiply the top equation by 7 and the bottom equation by -9 because I got to make opposites. What would my top equation be? Is anyone actually a part of this, or am I just, I'm wondering right now? Okay, keep going, Gavin. You're the only one that clearly wants to talk to me, so let's keep going. -63a equals. Okay, and then the second row, what are we going to get? You keep going. You're the only one that's talking to me, so I'm going to ride this out, but appreciate you. Mm-hmm. I did it in my head and I got -1044. Did I mess that up? Is that right? Cool. Okay, good. So if you're still listening, if you're in the people that are listening but just don't want to talk to me, what we have now is a beautiful little 2x2 system that's ready to cancel. So I'm going to cancel out my A's when I add downwards. And how many C's are we going to get? I'm not going to write 82. Um, I'm not going to write that either. That's the worst thing I've ever heard. Negative what? Yeah, I like that so much better. -223. And then -294 and -1044. It's just an addition problem with a negative sign on the front. So it's -1338. It's at this point that you kind of cross your fingers and hope that things come out nice because as has been the case, and I'm not going to change it on you now the day before the quiz, you can expect nice whole numbers, positive, negative whole numbers, integers. So when I divide by -223, I get C equals 6. That's a great sign. When there's that much chaos happening and it comes out to a whole number, you're like, yeah, that, that feels good. And sometimes what happens is we get a little excited at this point, and a lot of mistakes now happen here because we feel like we've overcome this great amount of work, and then we let our guard down a little bit. So stay strong and don't make any stupid mistakes. Again, you're human. I get it, but you can do this. There are 4 equations on the board from which to choose. I would strongly encourage you to not choose the ones that I'm placing this big yellow X through. Like, why would you? God's sake, that's just weird. So I would go back and pick the original 2x2 equations because the numbers are smaller, and I'd probably lean towards the top one. I like it better. So the top equation, I'm going to pull that kind of from up here. I'll use a little arrow and pull it down. If I do the top equation, it will say -9 times A plus 8 times 6, which I hope is 48, equals -42. Then I subtract 48 from both sides and I get -90, and then I divide by -9 and I get A equals +10. Good. And now that I know A and I know C, I can choose from any of the equations on the board that have all 3 letters. And I'm sorry to keep repeating myself, but I would question your judgment if you choose now either of these that I'm putting a yellow X through. Just why would you? Why would you knowingly choose an equation that the numbers are bigger in? It just doesn't make sense. So I would go back to probably the original top one. It's my favorite that I can see. So it says, I'll write this in green for you. It says A plus 6B plus 8 times C equals -2. So I'm doing a little bit of fourth grade math as I go, little multiplication times table stuff. I'm going to add my 10 and my 48 together to get 58, and then I'm going to subtract 58 from both sides, which is going to give me 6B equals -60. And then I'm going to divide both sides by 6, which is going to give me B equals -10. And at this point, I can construct my final answer, which I kind of went against something I've done in the past, and that is kind of build it as I go. It doesn't matter. One thing I do is I like to put little boxes around important things as I go. Like when you see my answer key, when I post it later, if you look, I box up significant answer portions along the way. So like the moment I got C, I probably would have put a little box around it. And then the moment I got A, I would have put a little box around it. And I'm not boxing these to tell my teacher that these are my final answers. I box them to remind myself where to pick things from when I go to write the answer. Don't leave it like this, right? That's not an ordered triple. So the answer has to go A, B, C. You can tell the order of your answers based on the order of the variables in the equations. So since the equations went A, B, C, then your answers have to go A, B, C. So my final answer would be 10, then -10, and then 6, like that. Okay. You guys like to go over number 3? Sure. Anyone want to go over number 3? Okay.
Oh, yes, I do.
Let's do this. I knew number 3 would be interesting when I popped it up there this morning. And what's interesting to you about the first equation? There's no A. Stay with me now. Stay with me. Get in the brain here. And if I look at that top equation and I pull it off to the side, and I'm going to use the same words that I used in the last problem. I want to be consistent here. If I take that equation off to the side, could I make him a mate? Could I introduce him to a mate? What characteristic would his mate have to have? It has to have no A. So let me ask you, could I use the bottom 2 equations to get rid of A? Sure I could. Because the second equation has a 6A, and the third equation has a 4A. I could multiply them by 2 and -3 by A's. And I understand that you're leery of that. You're a little scared of that because you're like, the third equation is missing a C, but that's okay. You just put a 0C in there when you go to do the work. It's not going to get in the way. So I could proceed that way. Or I could erase this and I could say, well, the bottom equation is catching my eye. It's interesting to me because it doesn't have a C. So I could pull that equation off to the side and say 4A plus 7B equals 17. That, again, I'm going to use the word. It's waiting for its mate. It's sitting over there and saying, would you please give me another equation that's like me, that doesn't have a C? Could we make one for him? Yes. If you're looking at the TV, you'd never know the answer because you're not looking at your paper. The answer's on your paper. Could I get rid of C's by using the top 2 equations? Yes. The top one has a 3, I could multiply it by 5, and then the bottom one, the middle one has a 5, I could multiply it by 3. Bye-bye C's, pardon the pun, see you later, right? So my question to you at this point would be, which one do you prefer? Okay, so the one that I have on the board is the way I'm going to go. And I'm saying this, someone will still ask, but I'm saying this, we could have done it the other way. We could have done the one without the A, but I would pick the first one I was going to hear. Brooklyn said she wants to do this one. Let's do this one. So your top equation now is the one, excuse me, your bottom equation is the one we're trying to make a match for. So the top equation, I'm going to copy it down on the board. It says -5B plus 3C equals 14. And the second equation says 6A minus 9b minus 5c equals 30. What's our goal right now? What are we trying to do? Get rid of the C. Thank you for saying that out loud. Get rid of the C. That's my goal because I want to make a match for that guy over there in the corner. So if anyone's at all uncomfortable with what you see on the board, take a look at what I'm about to do. I could put 0A right there, and now I have no concerns. Placeholder, a filler, whatever. Call it what you like. Okay? So now I'm committed. If I were to add the two equations on the left side of the TV together, would I accomplish my goal? No. So I need to do some modification here. And, you know, I'm in high school, so I know that the way to kill a 3 and a -5 is to turn them both into 15. So I'm going to multiply by 5. I'm going to multiply by 3. Good? What? Mm-hmm. What? What are you up to? Are you guilty of something? Huh? Are you guilty of something? No. Is she causing trouble? Is she watching Grey's Anatomy on her phone or something? So again, I don't feel like any work that I have up here requires much explanation, but I am going to show what those equations look like after the blue 5s get multiplied, or the 5 and the 3 get multiplied through. So I'll show these equations down below. So I'm going to have now a no A. So I'm still going to have 0 A's. I'm going to have minus 25 B's. I'm going to have plus 15 C's, and I'm going to equal that to 70. Still good? Okay, and then on the bottom equation, I'm going to multiply by 3, and I'm going to get 18 of those. I'm going to get minus 27 of those. I'm going to get minus 15 of those, and 90 of those. Now, when I add these equations together, something good is going to happen. When I add downwards, I'll use my little blue arrows again. If I go straight down by the blue arrows, how many A's do I get? I get 18 A's. How many B's do I get? And of course, the C's cancel, and that equals what? Good. And because I have the technology to do fun things like this, I'm going to now take that equation and physically place it up here by its mate. And I probably don't need to finish this. I will, because I started it. But at this point, if you still had a question, it might be a little bit lost. So I'm going to go ahead and kill off the A's because I prefer to work with those than the 7 and the 52. I know that those can both be made into 36s. So I'm going to multiply the top one by like -9 and the bottom one by 2. Good. So I'm going to wind up with -36a minus 63b equals -153. Bottom is going to be 36a minus 104b equals 320. This is very similar to question 4. Just feels similar. So when I add, my A's cancel, and I'm left with -167 B's, and that's equal to 67. That's nice. Neat. So what's B? Good. And I can tell you, because you don't do what I do all day, you don't walk around and look at people's papers. You'd be amazed how often I would walk around and someone says, hey, I don't understand where I went wrong. And they would have put B equals 1. And again, I think part of that is we let our guard down when we feel like the smoke is starting to clear, then we race towards the finish line and we're not careful of our surroundings. So stay cautious, stay vigilant, right? So B is -1. I'm going to put that, I'll probably put it right there. I like that equation the best, I think. So I'll write this in green. It's going to say 4A plus 7B equals 17. Add 7, get 24, divide by 4, A equals 6. And there's some equations on the board, but there's actually only two that will do me any good. This top one, it would be a terrible choice. Actually, no, this one would work just fine. I think the only one that would work that would not work would be any that don't have a C. But actually, I think they're all good. So which one do we like? You like that 0 one? Okay, good. So if we put it into here where the yellow bubble's at, then we'll have 0A. We'll switch to blue, I guess. So 0 times A is 0 times 6 is 0. And then it says minus 5B. So that's minus 5 times -1 plus 3C equals 14. Subtract 5, you get 9. Divide by 3, you get 3. And again, all the things now that I've worked so hard for are boxed up and ready for me. So my answer is the composition of all three of those. So I would have 6 for my A, -1 for my B, 3 for my C. Good? Okay. Cool.